Hello, I'm Emily Rhodes, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Assembly by Natasha Brown. This is the October 2025 pick for Emily's Walking Book Club. I know many of you watching this are members of the book club, so great to see you here on YouTube. So for those who aren't, please do sign up, is what I was going to say. We meet 3 times a month, but those are optionals. They're like 3 opportunities to meet up. 2 of those are walks, so one on Hampstead Heath, one in Regent's Park, and one is on Zoom. There are now about 4,000 of us in the group, and we're very friendly and very nice and very welcoming and inclusive. And obviously, not all 4,000 people come on the walks. So you're super welcome just to read along. Obviously, I love hearing what you think of the books. So if you aren't able to come to one of our meetups, please do just drop me an email or leave me a comment on one of our posts. We have this weekly newsletter on Substack, which is just emily'swalkingbookclub.substack.com. So yeah, sign up to that, and looking forward to keeping in touch about the books. And this is our October book. Okay, so I'm going to try and give you a kind of synopsis. Very hard book to do that with. Basically, it is a very kind of condensed moment of time. Condensed and yet exploded. So I still can't kind of figure out exactly how long it is. I think it's about... is it 2 days, roughly, in the life of this young woman who is, we sort of begin, and it kind of begins where she's giving an assembly to a school, and we immediately understand that she is a representative of the diversity of her bank, and she feels like she's kind of telling this lie of how great it is to work in finance and how welcoming and inclusive it is for women, and particularly women of colour. And then she leaves the school, having given this assembly. We spend the day with her in the office, experiencing that kind of discrimination there. She's phenomenally successful. She gets a promotion. She meets her boyfriend after work. Some other things happen to her. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, so I'm just going to leave that bit out. She meets her boyfriend after work, and he is sort of white, aristocratic, incredibly privileged man who's also like depressed, and works in politics, and this is where I kind of can't. Anyway, they spend the night together, I think, and then the next day, similar thing happens. She goes and meets him in the countryside, where his family are having this big party at their kind of family pile, and she's been invited along, and she kind of gets the train there after work, meets him at the station, and there's kind of awkward chat with his family, and then the next morning more awkward chat, and then she kind of goes off for a little walk through the gardens, and then ends up looking kind of back on the house just as they're setting up the party, and he comes and joins them. So the reason I found it quite hard to condense that is that although it's a very small amount of time, Brown kind of explodes time in this. And so, just as what happens in your day-to-day life, you'll be doing one thing and then you'll be remembering something that happened, weeks, months, years ago, days ago, whatever it is. Time is really non-linear, and you really feel that here. So there are lots of other events that kind of fold into the book as well, that aren't kind of trapped in that very small window of time. There is so much to discuss in this book but yet I also feel it's quite a tricky one. It's kind of quite slippery. It's kind of hard to get a handle on it, and getting into things. And yeah, I don't think it's going to be the easiest discussion to kind of chair, I suppose, but I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts. Briefly, just to point out that although it is incredibly slim, it's about 100, is it 100 pages? Yeah, I think it's exactly 100 pages. Um, and you can, and I would say should, sit down and read it in one sitting. You know, you can definitely do it in a couple of hours, probably even an hour. Um, it's almost quite deceptive because I have now read this, I think, 4, possibly 5 times. It's and that is quite unusual for me. I do really believe in rereading, and most book club books I've read a couple of times, but you know, I don't think I've read any of them 4 or 5 times. And I think that's just because there's so much in here, and it kind of slips through your fingers, and you want to go back and try and pin it down and really scrutinize, you know, what was happening on that page, and what did she mean with that use of language, and what was she pointing at here, and what's that reference? And you know, it's almost quite like when you read poetry, you kind of need to drill into it, and read it maybe slightly differently to how you'd read a traditional kind of plot focused novel. So I think one thing I'd just like to try and discuss a little bit here is this kind of battle, I suppose, or fight or struggle that goes on throughout the book for subjectivity, for you know, the ability to like to look back, to have a view, to shape your life, to give your own perspective on things, rather than objectivity, which, you know, is being seen. So yeah, I suppose it's sort of the oppression of constantly being seen, and feeling like everything you do is almost in reaction to that, in response to that, whether that's to go along with that prejudice or to refute it, and defy it, and you know, but to always have that feeling of objectivity at the core of what you're doing, versus the kind of freedom and arrogance and power of subjectivity, sort of looking out at things and seeing things in a particular way and letting that be the thing that shapes your course. So I'm going to read a couple of tiny bits out that I think shows. So yeah, I don't want to give away spoilers in this book, especially as it's such a quick one to read. You know, you really will find out all about it very quickly if you pick it up. But I think, although there's so much about this book that is like deeply devastating, and sort of so moving, so powerfully moving, I think there is some positivity here, she says, hopefully. And this is hopefully can be seen in this some movement from objectivity at the beginning to subjectivity at the end, and that's the bit I'm going to read out. So right at the beginning, so although the bulk of the book is written in the first person, so that's like the I, the first little bit, again, it's formally quite quite unusual. Is that even a way of saying it? It's formally quite experimental. So I don't know if I'd call this a chapter or a passage or a segment or whatever, but it's about 5 pages and it's right at the start of the book. And this bit is told in the third person, so that's, you know, he said, she said, rather than I say exactly. All right is the title of this chapter, if that's what we're calling it. All right. You have to stop this, she said. Stop what? He said. We're not doing anything. She wanted to correct him. There was no we. There was he the subject and her the object. But he just told her, look, there's no point getting worked up over nothing. So you can see there's this real, he the subject and her the object. She is the object. And there's this kind of slight irony here, isn't there, where he says he just told her, look, when that's the one thing she kind of can't do. She can't look, she can't have that subjectivity because he is the one doing all the looking. And that's kind of really played out in that opening chapter, which is quite brutal to read, I would say, as particularly as a woman. But then we get to the very end, and as I mentioned, she's gone to this party with her boyfriend at his family estate. And there's this awkward conversation with the mum in the morning, who's like very sort of kind, but also slightly dreadful. Anyway, she kind of pushes her out. She's like, why don't you go and take a walk? Like, get out of the way. Subtext. So she goes for this walk, and she just kind of keeps on walking. And it says this, okay. I sit on the grass and look out over the family's bustling estate. The tableau before me moves small and detached from sound, though well composed. The house and the greenery set a splendid backdrop for the lively garden scene. And she kind of keeps going, and it's almost, this really is like the artist's view. She's creating a kind of painting. She's looking back. You can really see it. You can really visualize it. And there's this real emphasis on the fact that she is looking out. She is the one doing the looking. She is the one who's creating this like backdrop, the scene. She's really emphasizing this act of looking. She calls, there's much here to delight an eagle-eyed viewer. And then I think there's some ambivalence when she says, yes, I'm staring, but I do not diminish. I cannot snuff out such vibrancy with my dim view from afar. Still, I have looked, I've seen, and even if I cannot express what it is I saw here, what I've come to understand, I know it's enough. And so, yes, she has got the subjectivity, she's got this power, she is staring, she's seen, she's looked, she's got there, she's no longer the object. But there is also this real clear-sightedness, I suppose, in the admission of the limits of that power, that unlike when she was an object and other people were doing the seeing, she felt so diminished and snuffed out by that. She cannot have that reciprocal power. She just has a dim view from afar. But still, I have looked, she still does have that subjectivity. So I think it's really fascinating, and I think so much in the book, time and again, there are these sort of instances of tension, I suppose, between wanting that subjectivity and that agency and the ability to shape one's path subjectively, versus the reality of being the object of so much prejudice and assumption and all the rest of it, and the kind of awful pressure that places on someone. So it's I think it's an absolutely extraordinarily brilliant book. I think it's so important, and I think although it is very specifically about the very subjective story of a Black British young woman and the prejudice she encounters, I do think that there is something about that struggle between objectivity and subjectivity that perhaps we can all relate to. and we've all encountered at one time or another, someone seeing you in a different way, and just how horrible that is at even having to defy that. However well you can defy it, it's sort of just so kind of demeaning to have to even engage with it. And well, again, I don't want to give away the spoilers, but I think you really can understand why the narrator takes the decision she does take in the book. Oh, I can't wait to hear what you will think. Please do leave me a comment or write me an email if you're not coming on the walks, or even if you are coming on the walks. I can't wait to discuss this with you. Thank you for listening to my rather rambling thoughts about this very unrambling, concise, sharp book. Can't wait to hear your thoughts.